offers online courses, remote coaching, webinars, workshops, mentor program, all things confirmation. So today we're going to be talking to Chelsea Murray from Pawsitive Futures. So I met Chelsea because she attended my very first online course, which was just a Facebook page with, the lessons on there. It was years ago now.
It was, yeah.
And then when I went to speak a couple of times in Atlanta, I got to actually meet Chelsea and hang out with her and that kind of thing. So I'm very excited to have her because we've been talking about doing something with Show Dog Prep School for a while on the things that Chelsea does with her dogs. So this is, I've done a lot of dog sports, but this is completely new to me. I don't know anything about this sport. So other than looking at pictures and videos and seeing Chelsea's posts and that it seems like a lot of fun, I don't know anything about it. So I'm pretty excited. So first I wanted Chelsea just to kind of introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what you offer and your business and your dogs.
Absolutely. My name is Chelsea Murray. I own and train with Pawsitive Futures Dog Training and Behavior in Atlanta. I am a KPA certified trainer. I'm also certified through the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers, basically clicker training. So we do everything from puppies to reactive dogs. We also work with aggression cases. We do sport dog foundations. We do a little bit of confirmation, and we also do Dryland Mushing. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. That is a sport that I really, really enjoy with my dogs. I've got 3 Alaskan Malamutes at home. And Vicki, I met you working with my youngest, Lennon. He was my first show dog. But it's a really, really fun sport that is obviously innate to my breed, Alaskan Malamutes. They are working dogs. They are sled dogs. But one of my favorite things about this sport is that you don't have to have a stereotypical sled dog to be able to enjoy this. So it's a really, really nice way for people to connect with their dogs, for people to get active with their dogs. It's just really, really good for that human and canine bond.
So I have sort of was collectively calling it sled dog sports because it's like, I know that there's several sports that fall into that category. So mushing, dry mushing, bikejoring, and canicross. So let's kind of go through those. And so tell us, like, if you were wanting to get into this as a competitive sport, is this something you can just do on your own? You obviously can just do this without competing, right?
You can, yeah. It's, and that's another reason I really like it is because you can be as casual and laid back with it as you want. You can also go all the way up and compete for your country at the World Championships. So there's lots of opportunities to enjoy it, depending on how into it you are. Certainly what breed of dog you have. Obviously, when you get to those upper levels, there are certain breeds that tend to do better because they are faster than others. But it's kind of an all-encompassing. So you said sled dog sports, that's what we think of when we see these dogs. My husband and I were out on the trail the other day with our dogs with the bikes, and somebody goes, "Oh my gosh, so cool. They're like sled dogs." I was like, well, they are. And that's where all of these sports kind of originated from. So obviously, when you think of sled dogs, you think of a big team, lots of dogs all connected. Iditarod, Yukon Quest. You think of these huge distance races and snow, right? But not everybody has snow all year long, including people who train for the Iditarod. And so they originally were designed, all of these kind of subset sports, as ways to keep these competition race dogs fit when we didn't have snow. So that's kind of how bikejoring started, and then canicross started. You can also do this on skis. It's called ski joring. My husband and I also have a scooter, so you could do it with a scooter. So there's lots of different ways. So dryland mushing is kind of the all-encompassing word of dog-powered sports without snow. So canicross, scootering, rigs, and bikejoring all fit into that category of dryland mushing. Okay. And then mushing is kind of that more overhead concept that would include all of the dryland mushing, would also include your sleds, it would include ski joring. So that mushing is snow and on dryland. And then dryland includes all of those little subsets.
So are the dogs, I'm writing questions as we
Yeah.
go. Are the dogs pulling you or just running? Because sometimes isn't it like you might be riding a bike, so maybe they're not
Mhm.
totally pulling you. Are they pulling you? Are you just letting them run with you? How is, or is it different for each sport?
Yes. So generally speaking, when we're talking about dryland mushing, it is dog powered, meaning that the dog is out in front and pulling.
Okay.
With things like the bike, or if you're running canicross, obviously you are also putting in some effort. It's not
Okay.
just the dog pulling without your assistance. And that's true for, even the Iditarod. If you look at them, those mushers are also training fitness level themselves, because there are times they get off that sled and they help push. So even
Okay.
in a racing, venue, you will still see the human assisting. But yeah, the goal of the sport is that the dog is putting in effort and pulling beyond just, running next to you or running with you.
Okay. And so let's go through sort of, you said so mushing and dryland mushing.
Mhm.
Those are the two where sort of the, you would be like in a sled or something or on something and they're pulling you, right?
Yeah, so mushing would include those snow categories. So it would include a sled, and they have sleds, kick sleds that work with one dog, two dogs, and then you have those bigger sleds that work for large teams. And then ski joring, you'd be on cross country skis in the snow.
Okay. And so do people do like dryland mushing with large groups of dogs?
Yeah, we
So they
have.
will practice, for Iditarod with a big group, not even having snow.
Correct. Generally, the more dogs you have, kind of the bigger piece of equipment you would want. I have a scooter and a bike, and we've hooked all three of our dogs up to that. Generally, when you start getting bigger teams than that, you're going to want something a little more substantial and probably something with better brakes. So you're looking at more of the rigs. They look like sleds, kind of, but they're on wheels.
Okay. And so what about the bike joring? So that's you're on a bike. Does it have, is
Mhm.
it a special bike? It looked like a trike that you were on.
Yeah, so and the photo that you have, that's a rig. That's a
Oh, okay.
three-wheeled rig. The mountain bikes we have, I do recommend a mountain bike. They're a little bit more substantial. You have suspension in the front, which kind of helps with a little bit of shock absorption. But mountain bikes are kind of the most common bike used for bike touring. And then depending on what kinds of trails you like to ride on, where you're planning on doing bike touring, that might dictate what kind of bike you get, because there really is a wide variety of mountain bikes, and changes in suspension, changes in wheels can make a really big difference in terms of how that bike feels underneath you. So
Okay.
my husband and I really like to ride on single track mountain bike trails. So
So
they're
each of you with a dog.
Right. Yep. And
Okay.
sometimes two dogs on a mountain bike. So when we go
Okay.
out with all three, generally my husband will run one and I'll run two. And so we like those more narrow, kind of twisty, turny ups and downs. And so we got, tires that were substantial to handle that, with some pretty good front suspension to give us a little shock absorption as well.
So you see people all the time with big dogs, handlers who are showing dogs that,
Mhm.
are on the road and need exercise and they're riding them around with their bikes. And there's people in my
Yeah,
neighborhood who ride around with their dogs and a bike. So this is different though. Like how
it
you
is.
are training them then to pull forward,
Mhm.
right? And do you put that
Correct.
on like a verbal cue, like you teach
Mhm.
them pull now?
Yep. So we've got several cues that we use. Line out means for the dog to walk to the end of the leash until they feel pressure on it.
Okay.
And then we have a go, like you're allowed to run now, and that's hike, hike. They're allowed to start. And then we have directions, so that even though they're out in front of us, we can verbally give them cues to guide them to the right, to the left, to even ask them to move over across a trail, and then to go straight through kind of an intersection of trails. So it's different. I will say that I have trained my dogs to be able to do both, because there are certain settings. For example, you just mentioned at shows. There have been
Yeah.
times at shows, where I have taken Lennon, my youngest, and clipped him to a collar, and he knows that collar means loose leash, and he'll run next to the bike. But that's a very different thing for them versus being out in front and letting them pull you.
Right. And so do you think that it seems to me that pulling is sort of self-reinforcing. They like that, right? They want to
Oh,
do
they
that.
love that. They love that. When we are on trails, and I've got a couple awesome video clips of it, when we're on trails and we ask them to stop, they lose their minds. They want to keep going so bad. They're jumping into the harnesses, vocalizing, asking, no, let's
Mhm.
go, let's go, let's go. And so
Yeah.
they definitely like it. And it's really nice because, you know, a lot of our lives, we have to put structure into our dogs and ask them to
Right.
do certain things. For example, the show ring that might be really weird. And there's a lot of things that they have to work through, but them being able to just let loose and run as fast as they want to is really, really nice for them. And it's really nice as a person to be able to give your dog that, to be able to see them kind of let loose and have fun like that.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for you know, encouraging dogs in some way to do what they were bred to do. And I had
Yeah.
Laura Joseph on, who's a multi-species trainer last week. And Laura has always told me, like when she talks to people because they're upset their bird is doing something and they want to clip the bird's wings,
Yeah.
like she'll always say, if you're going to take away something that's natural for the animal, you have to replace it with something else,
Yeah.
right? Or you're going to get issues. So I
Yep.
really like this. You know, to me, this is like, you know, field trialing with dachshunds or
Yep.
barn hunt with dachshunds or, you know, doing lure coursing with a sight hound. I mean, this is what
Hmm.
they're bred to do.
It is.
So, and I feel like a lot of the breeds that do this are breeds that people consider willful and stubborn
Yeah.
and difficult and hard-headed, but didn't we breed them that way so that they could do this work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that I agree with you wholeheartedly that it's really, really important. And it's a beautiful thing when you can give a breed of dog that was bred for a specific thing, a breed specific outlet. And you know this, I do all kinds of things with my dogs. You know, Lennon does
Yes.
conformation, barn hunt, lure coursing, obedience, rally, nose work. We do everything, but he lights up in a very different way when we do this versus when we do other things, for sure. Big difference.
Wow. So different than any other sport.
Different than any other sport. And he's, you know, I mean, he's a clicker trained dog. He's very engaged. He's super social, really, really happy guy. But it is very different when we get those harnesses out, when we load them up in the car with our bikes, when we get out and we're unpacking. I mean, you could just see them. They're like, let me go, let me go, let me go. And you give them that cue and they take off. They're so excited to be out there.
Yeah, it reminds me of like my husband and I are both dachshund and basset hound field trial judges. And it makes me think of those breeds when you get them out in the field and it's like
Yeah,
it's just different. It's just
it
different
is.
than anything else. So I really I want that to be a big part of the message that it's like
Mhm.
this is fun for you, but
Yeah.
this really is an essential for, well, that word means something different now, but this really is something that is important to
Yeah,
your dogs. Like
it is.
this is um you know, this is something that's mentally stimulating, it's
Mhm.
physical, it's all sorts of those things. I got a couple of questions. So Hannah asked, what is the general speed you move with joring? I know there are different categories like sprint, etc., but what is a normal pace?
Great question. Normal is different for every dog. What I would say is that it is important to go at your dog's pace and of course the pace that you feel comfortable moving at. Every dog is very different. For my dogs in particular, Malamutes, they're easy. I can go this speed all day long is around 8 miles an hour. That's kind of their comfortable trotting. I could do this all day.
Hmm.
I have clocked them on trails as fast as 26 miles per hour.
Wow.
Obviously, that is not sustainable. And I really, really think that this speed or this normal speed really depends on a bunch of things. It depends on your dog's age, your dog's breed, how fit they are, how comfortable and confident your dog is in harness, and how comfortable you are as well. And so I wouldn't be too worried about, oh, am I doing this at the same pace as everyone else? I would say, am I comfortable with this speed? And is my dog comfortable with this speed? And as you get into it further, you will find that as your dog gets more comfortable in that harness, you might see those speeds start to increase more and more.
Okay. So oh, I had a question about the speed. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask. So I'm assuming that the equipment that you're using will affect how fast the dog goes too, right? And how much
Absolutely.
weight they're pulling and
Yep. Yeah. If we're running canicross, we are not going 26 miles per hour. I cannot run that fast. And same thing if we have a big rig, that 3-wheeled rig, that's heavier than my bike is. So when I'm standing on that, they're moving slower. Biking and scootering for us is certainly the fastest that we go. And then our speed is also dictated dramatically by what kind of trails that we are riding on.
yeah, that makes
If
sense.
we are
And the
on
terrain.
yeah, absolutely. If we're on good substrate, grass or kind of packed sand with some give but structure, our dogs are running faster, right? But if we're on really windy, wooded trails with lots of hills and roots, they're running slower. And a lot of the times your dog will self-regulate that. If they're not going to go all out on those super windy trails, especially if they're new to it or nervous about it, right? As their confidence grows, as their experience grows, you'll see that speed change on those trails as well.
And you learn to read their body language and determine when they're comfortable or not.
Absolutely.
I have a
Absolutely.
very geeky question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so because this is why I don't like to do canned questions. It's like just sort of like where my brain is going with this.
Yeah.
So one of my fears, well, let me just tell you, I have a friend who was killed actually on a bicycle, just riding in the
Ooh.
street in our in our town.
Yeah.
So I'm a little like weirded out and scared about, riding a bike. Plus I have little
Yeah.
dogs. So I
Yeah.
would like to get a bike, but I want to stick the dog in the basket on the bike.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so my big fear is, the dog seeing something and jetting out this way or jetting out that way to go or crossing in front.
Mhm.
So do you find that with the breeds who are bred for a tendency to want to pull and go forward, that becomes like more reinforcing than crittering? Like do you know what I mean? Does
I
that
know
make
what you
sense?
mean. Yes, it does. So, I'll give you two different kind of aspects here. So, one, let's talk about comfort level and safety. So, absolutely, everybody in our mushing club jokes with me and they call me the mom of the group because I'm always like, where's your helmet? Because it is dangerous.
Right.
You have to protect yourself so that you are there to care for your dogs. Plain and
Right.
simple.
Right.
In terms of stability, I am not the best bike rider out there. I didn't learn how to really ride a bike until I was a young adult. Okay. So I'm not super comfortable and stable on bikes. The bikes that we selected do have wider tires, which are great for stability. But even if you're not comfortable on a bike, scooters, believe it or not, are pretty stable. And they're easy to get on and off. So if you're worried about being able to like bail or quickly put your feet on the ground, scooters are also a really nice option for that.
So on a scooter, you're standing up.
You are.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
There are lots of different kinds. The one we have is a fat tire scooter. So it's got really big tires on it and it's super, super stable. And so when you're standing on that, you don't feel like you're going to face plant. And then of course, if you are still learning, your dog is still learning, go on easy trails, find really quiet trails that are flat, trails that are quiet. Obviously, the more traffic around you, the harder it's going to be, maybe the more nervous you're going to be. And then make sure you really do your groundwork because I know that a lot of people are super eager. They go, oh my God, that looks like so much fun. And they're ready to just hook their dog up and get on their bike. But there's a lot of training that needs to be done before you hook that dog up to the bike. They need to really be reliable with directions and a stop cue, right? So that you can ask them to whoa, and they'll stop. And so I think that really putting in that groundwork with your training with your dog, and then as a human, work on your mechanics of riding the vehicle of choice. And then when you put those two parts together, it's going to be a lot easier.
So you are going to be teaching a class on this, a remote class, and I have your website is, crawling underneath pawsitivefutures.com.
Yep.
So people can go there to sign up for that class.
Yeah, it's not live yet. Sneak peek.
Okay.
But it will be no, you're fine. It will be very soon. And it's going to be a 4-week class that's designed for anybody who has no experience. So if you're ready to hook up to canicross is where we're going to start teaching our cues. We're teaching left and rights. We're teaching line outs. We're going to talk about equipment and safety. We're going to work on foundations of getting your dog fit. And by the end of the 4 weeks, you'll be able to hook up and go with your dog.
Okay. Maybe you'll do a Facebook Live to promote that class and kind of go over equipment with people for Show Dog Vet School.
Absolutely.
I'd love to get some people over there who are interested in this. So we have another comment. So this is Caitlin. So Caitlin is somebody who trains with me locally.
Okay.
And she was the one who had posted pictures of her dogs, her terriers, riding along a bike. And I was like, you have to watch this live. So she asked, I'm totally doing this with my terriers. It will help them focus. Maybe I'm crazy, starting with backpack weight training.
Nice.
And then Hannah said, yes, prey drive is also a concern of mine. So as you know, she has sight hounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could imagine that would be a concern, but this class she's very excited about. Hannah's wrote in capitals that yes, this is the class I wanted.
Awesome. Yeah, prey drive is definitely something. I will tell you, in our mushing club, we do have 2 sight hounds that run, and their on-bys and leave-its are some of the cleanest I've seen with sight hounds. And it really just goes back to that foundation training, right? Being able to teach your dog a good leave-it, to teach your dog an on-by. Now, I will say those 2 terms are different for me. So when I teach a dog leave-it, it means look at me instead of that. So if I'm walking down the street and I see trash, leave it, and they can look at me and I can move away from that item. But you also have to think that with these dog-powered sports, we don't want the dogs turning around and looking at us. They need to be able to hear us, and they need to be able to keep going straight. So when we're working with these dogs that have a lot of prey drive or are very easily excitable or distracted, I do both of them. I do a leave it, because in general, the more you work on impulse control, the better it's going to get. And then I also work on by, so that the dog can then translate a similar skill of, oh, I'm ignoring that, except we keep that forward motion instead of looking back at the handler. So definitely focusing on your impulse control and on those foundation skills are going to be really important for those sight hounds and for those dogs who like to critter.
It makes me think of like herding dogs too, and how they have to, at such a far distance, get those directional cues and, learn how to just,
control it.
Control that. So Caitlin said, LOL, it was the dogs pulling me on my kid's push car.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
Exactly. But you know what? I'm glad you mentioned getting them used to the equipment, because I haven't done this before, but I have worked with a few of my best friends' dogs on getting them used to being in a wheelchair. So one of her dogs doesn't have front legs. It's like a Chihuahua, and he has like little chicken wings. So he has a front end harness, and then her pug is having issues with his rear. So now he has a rear end harness, and it's like, you think that you should just be able to put this on and the dog will be like, cool, I can run now. And it's really not like that. I mean, and for the Chihuahua, he's so little that like we had to figure out a way to make him not tip onto his nose, because it just was, everything was off balance. So I do think it must be a lot just to get them comfortable with the equipment and proper fit for the equipment and proper equipment,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fitness equipment that you're putting on the dog, and it's the equipment that's going to be behind them. A lot of people who start sled dogs, whether they're competition or recreation, will start from puppyhood, right? It's like that socialization. It's, hi, I'm going to put this harness on you and you're going to get cookies. And hi, you're going to drag, a milk jug behind you and it's going to make some noise, but it's going to be okay. Here's some cookies. But
I love that.
Yeah, but now as adults, we're saying, hi, we're going to introduce you to this brand new thing. And for a lot of these dogs, we've had so much reinforcement of loose leash, right? We're saying, hi, we've eliminated pulling from you. Oh, but now I want you to pull in this setting. And it's totally doable, but we have to get them used to the equipment. We have to get them used to what putting a harness feels like. We have to get them used to what the line pressure feels like. And we have to get them used to the sounds and the motion of something following behind them. And just like with anything, some dogs take a little longer to get used to it. Some dogs, it's, overnight they've got it. But
Yeah.
it's really important to make sure that you're looking at the dog in front of you and training that dog and moving at their pace. And if you do that, you're going to have no issues and your dog is going to absolutely love it.
We have that issue just within conformation where
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
train, either heel or don't pull on the leash, and then they don't understand why their dog paces in the ring, and it's because you've trained the dog to accommodate your speed. So he's
Right.
doing a great job. He's doing
Yeah.
exactly what you
What you
taught him to
told
do.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, but now it's not what you want anymore. So now we have to go back and retrain that. I imagine hearing this that like it must make a world of difference if you know you want to do this early on and you start training for it
It does,
and
but
prep
that's the case with everything. The earlier you start, the better it is.
for
Even with
sure.
pet dog manners, we have people that reach out at 8 weeks, and we have people that reach out at 4 years, and it makes a big difference. So if you know that you want to do that and you've got a puppy, there are so many things you can do safely. Obviously being mindful that the puppy is not getting hooked up to a big team and running really fast, but there are
Right.
things you can get them used to. You can start training those directions. You can start training leash pressure, like I said, with the milk jug, you can put some things inside the milk jug so that it makes noise as it rattles around, and feed the cookie as you walk through the yard. So there's lots of things you can do from a young age, but I also don't want to discourage people who have an older dog, because old dogs can learn new tricks. And as long as your dog enjoys being active and enjoys, running, then anybody can teach the skills necessary.
And did you know you wanted to did you do this before you had Lennon?
I did. So
you knew when you had got him as a baby, you sort of knew. Okay.
Yeah. So my husband and I got into this after we got our first Malamute. We were looking for breed specific outlets for him and came across actually scajoring first. And so we taught all of our foundation skills on ground. And the first time we went out to snow, we went scajoring, and it was insane and awesome. And we absolutely loved it.
So that means you were on skis and the dog was pulling you. Okay.
Yep. Cross country skis, and the dog is on harness, hooked to a harness on you. And we had a blast.
That's a lot of trust.
Yeah, it does. It takes a lot of trust. And we were like, how can we do this on dry land? Because we're on vacation. We don't live where we have snow. And then we ended up getting into dryland mushing from there. So I've been doing this now for eight years about.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So Caitlin said, can't wait for this class. People laugh at me because my dogs know right and left turn. She's the one with the terriers. And turn commands because we walk with strollers or push cars and wagons. It's so useful though. Yeah, it really is useful for them to have directions.
Yeah. And that's actually the place we started, is on neighborhood walks. Once we have it in kind of a low distraction environment in the house, we take those directions out on a neighborhood walk, and as we're approaching an intersection, we give our dog a cue and then click and treat when they make the right decision. So neighborhood walks are the perfect place to be reinforcing those behaviors before you get the dog out in front of you.
So we talked a little bit about different breeds, but can we talk more about that?
Absolutely.
I would imagine, my friend with toy poodles isn't going to do this with these teeny tiny little dogs, but what is there? I know that it's made sort of for dogs that's what they do. But What about other breeds? I mean, are they welcome to do it in the clubs? Those breeds are welcome to join a mushing club or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you will find it more common to see a lot of different breeds that you didn't expect, because it's getting more mainstream. Now, again, like I said, when you're getting to the more elite levels, you will see preferences for certain breeds just because they are faster. But at the recreational level, and even at, lower level competition level, you'll see all kinds of breeds. Obviously, I have Malamutes. They're not like a super fast dog. They can go fast, but not long term.
Aren't they more for stamina and
they're heavy load, slower speed, long distance. So they've got the endurance, but they don't have the speed. So
like a draft horse or something, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Big and strong.
The Huskies are generally, your faster. German Shorthair Pointers are very popular in the breed, especially at the upper levels. But I've seen Shelties do it. I've seen Lauchens do it. I've seen Poodles do it. What I will say is that as long as your dog enjoys running and you are being smart about watching your dog and making sure that you're going at their pace, then I don't think it needs to be breed restrictive by any means. Obviously we want to watch out orthopedically for our puppies and orthopedically for our older dogs. But outside of that, if your dog enjoys doing it and you want to get into it, we just respect the speed that your dog wants to move at and is able to move at, and anyone can do it.
Of all of the these 4 sports we've talked about, mushing, dryland mushing, bikejoring, or canicross, what do you think is the easiest to start with, especially maybe with an off breed?
Canicross, because you don't have any other pieces of equipment except for yourself, your dog, and what connects you. You don't have to worry about a bike or a scooter. So canicross is definitely what I recommend when people are first getting into it, because it's a way for you to train your dog to pull out in front, to enjoy it. And you don't have to run. A lot of people are like, oh my God, if I do this, like I can't run. I'd rather be on wheels. And I totally get that. Not everybody is a runner, but you have to start the directions on foot for safety of you and your dog. And so I always recommend starting on foot with canicross at any speed, walking or jogging. And then once your dog knows those skills, then you could move into anything else you wanted. And I think that scooters and bikes generally are kind of the same in terms of difficulty level, as long as you are doing them on the same trails. I think generally speaking with bikes, you have more versatility to do trails that might be more challenging. Although as I say that, I'm envisioning some of the things we've done with our scooter. But I think generally speaking, people would prefer a bike. More people are used to riding the bike, but the scooters that are made for this really are super durable and sturdy. So I think starting on foot with canicross, and then from there kind of thinking about, where would you like to do this? What trails do you have locally? What can you drive to? And then picking either a scooter, which is lower to the ground, has less versatility, or a bike that you could theoretically take anywhere.
And so if you just wanted to do this for fun, you could really just like not take it any further than just like I have no interest in having a mountain bike and going through trails, like but I might do it around a parking lot.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So you could do that. And would this class be helpful for somebody who just wants to start doing bike stuff with their dog?
For sure.
So even if you're not, you're not interested necessarily in getting into this, but you're interested in sort of biking with your dog or something.
Yeah, and that's the point, because everybody has to start somewhere. Even if your goal is to be super competitive and you want to really get into it, you've got to start with the same foundation. So the class will go over, like I said, how to teach directions, how to pick out the right equipment, how to get your dog used to it. And then we work through, a couple weeks of transitioning from giving the cues inside our house to giving the cues in our neighborhood to giving the cues while the dog is out front, and then eventually our first run with them. So
Got it.
That foundation is important, whether you want to just do it for fun with your dog, or if you want to go beyond that. It's a good starting place.
And what is there beyond that? Because I don't actually know of any mushing tournaments or trials or what does that look like, and who puts those on?
So lots of options, really. If you're talking about, specific to conformation or related to conformation, a lot of the working dog breeds within their own breed club will have working dog titles. So for example, the Samoyed Club, the Malamute Club, the Husky Club, they all have working dog titles that include backpacking and sled dog sports. And so there are different rules. So for example, Lennon has gotten 2 titles through the Malamute Club for being part of a working team. So you can certainly do it in that aspect. If you are looking for, if you have a breed that is not generally a working breed, or a breed that is a mixed breed, and want to compete in some aspect, a lot of local races are now starting to either allow dogs or have a canicross friendly section. So in Georgia here, we've got a couple people that are really working hard to help bring canicross races. And so some of our larger organizations are holding a separate canicross class. So they'll do their 5K, they'll do their 10K, and then they have a canicross division, which is super cool. That's a little bit more laid back. There also, you can do sanctioned races. So there are different clubs that put races on. Generally, they're further north than where I am here in Georgia. But we're planning fingers crossed, depending on our current situation, but we were planning on starting some sanctioned races this year. And so for sanctioned races, you could go and they have different divisions based on what type of cart or bike you're on, and then distance as well. And you can earn money, you can earn points to be entered towards championships for those. And then of course there's those really large races that we all think of, the Yukon Quest, the Iditarod. Those are obviously for people who live and breathe mushing at the kind of the top level. So lots of opportunities in the US and across the world to do this.
So I would love you to talk a little bit about Lennon, because I know that he's a champion show dog. I know that he's your do everything dog. So this is a dog that, is a show dog. It's like, there's no problem apparently for him to go right from, one sport to the other. So I know that he had a very successful trip to the national last year, right? Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was our second national that we went to. And we competed in the working dog class. So all of the dogs entered in this class had a working dog title through the Alaskan Malamute Club of America. And he placed second at the national in the working dog class. And then he competed in the showcase and he got third in the working dog showcase. So that was 25 really, really nice working dogs that have lots of working dog titles. And it was basically like a top 20 event at a national specialty, but it was for working dogs. And so that was really cool because it was kind of my ability to combine my working dog stuff with his conformation stuff. So that was pretty cool.
So let me ask you this: in dachshunds, it's not uncommon at all to have a dual champion, and in basset hounds, it's not uncommon to have a dual champion. So a dual championship means that the dog holds a field championship for hunting in the field and a conformation bench championship. In dachshunds, because of that, you go to the field and you see dogs that look like the dogs we see. Not so like with the beagles. So because there's been very few dual champion beagles. It's a different ball game. Those dogs don't look like the same. They're the guys who own them look like not the same. You know what I mean? It's like it's very split. But do you see, so is your working dog class, do they look like show quality? I mean, is there not a lot of variation? They're not breeding smaller ones to do this or changing up the conformation in order to do these sports, right?
Correct. With our breed standard, it specifically states in the standard that the dog should be able to do the job. And I wish it was something that people would take on more with every breed.
Right.
Let's make sure that these dogs that we're breeding to better the breed can still do the job that they were bred to do.
Exactly.
There are a lot of really good breeders out there that do focus on that. They focus on creating a well-structured, well-mannered, well-tempered Malamute that can also do the job. But I think that it probably is the same in all breeds, that there can sometimes be that disconnect between people who really enjoy working the dog and people who really enjoy the conformation ring. There are some people that just do one, and there are some people that just do the other. But I think that it really is important for the breed for them to be able to do both. And so I enjoyed kind of meeting a different group of people, because I hadn't met a lot of those working dog people, because there aren't a lot of weight pull around us. And that's one of the big working dog things that Malamutes do, is weight pull, but they don't really offer that as much here in the Southeast. They kind of have stopped offering that at major shows. And so working dogs then is backpacking and mushing sports, or dryland mushing sports. And there aren't a lot of opportunities for that in Georgia either. And so I hadn't met a lot of those people. So it was really nice for me to be able to make new connections and meet other people and see other, different ways that people do things.
Do you think that, it seems to me that it would be easier to live with a Malamute who's doing this, who's having this outlet of like, his thing, getting to do his thing,
Oh,
getting that mental
absolutely.
stimulation and enrichment and everything that comes with what he's made to do, right?
Absolutely. And I think that that's true for any dog. You
I
know,
do
if
too.
if you have a breed that has certain needs and those needs are not being met, you are going to see that energy come out in different ways. And generally speaking, for
Absolutely.
people, it's coming out in undesirable ways, either with attention seeking or demand, barking or pawing, or even nuisance behaviors like digging or inappropriate chewing or excessive vocalization. And so
Right.
when you can meet the needs of your dog, whether it's a Malamute or any other breed, they're so much easier to live with because they're happy, they're content. You know,
Yeah.
you've met those needs that they have.
Then you burn some stink off.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
quite honestly. So Chelsea said, I do bike touring with my Doberman and we both love it. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
That's so good.
And those are such athletic dogs. I've got a friend who runs a Doberman, and it's so nice to see other breeds out there, and those working dogs. You know, they all have high energy. They need a job to do, and so giving them that outlet's super important.
I can see this being a great thing for sporting dogs.
Oh, for sure.
I
Yep.
mean, and you said German Shorthairs are popular.
They're
In this.
popular at the upper levels of
Yeah,
canicross and bikejoring. Yep.
that makes sense. I mean, and I would think they would be on the fast side too.
Super, super fast. There was a guy that recently broke the world record for canicross, and he did it with a German Shorthair Pointer.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, Caitlin said versatility title, yay. And then she said, in Welsh Terriers, we have a versatility title, but must get a championship and either an Earth barn dog and one other of choice. People often do CGC. Glad to see all breeds all do what they were born to do. Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, and I've had dachshunds that were not super, they weren't great hunting dogs. And those were
Mhm.
not dogs that I necessarily eliminated from my breeding program.
Yep.
In other words, I'm not breeding just for that, but I'd like them to be able to do that too.
Right.
And then I've had some that are just nuts in the field, just absolutely crazy field dogs. But I think that even the ones who weren't great hunters, they still liked to go to the field trials. They
Yeah.
still like to go out walking in the field. They still liked seeing a rabbit,
Yeah.
or scenting a rabbit, but they just didn't hunt as good as someone else. But I
Yeah.
still think that they enjoyed doing it, even if they weren't as competitive at it,
Right. Right. Yep.
Yeah. So, okay. I just want to remind people, positivefutures.com. You also have a Facebook page,
I
right?
do. Yep. Yep.
And
Same
so,
same name.
okay. So, on Facebook, you're probably going to be talking more about this class that's coming up.
I sure will. And when we close here, what I will do, we have a separate newsletter that we're setting up for people who are interested in learning more about dryland mushing, canicross, bikejoring. So if you're interested in getting some special tips sent right to you, I'll drop a link in the comments so that you can easily sign up for that. And you don't have to sign up for the general newsletter if you don't want. You can just sign up for those mushing sport particular newsletters.
That would be great. Okay. So, and then finally, I would love it if you were willing to do either a Facebook Live or something for Show Dog Prep School, showing some of your equipment, maybe
Absolutely.
showing some videos and pictures of what you've done. And then people can head on over to Positive Futures if they want to sign up for that class. I think that would be
Absolutely. Yeah,
great.
I would be happy to come on, and I can collect some of the different pieces of equipment that we use, and I can set it up so that we can kind of go over some basics of what to look for in equipment, some safety things. We can talk about fit and how to get your dog used to it. I'd be happy to do that.
Perfect. So you guys look for that in the comments. I also just want to remind everybody that this Saturday I have a Facebook Live class, the Rock Solid Stacks Day. We still have openings there. Don't forget to like us and follow us on Facebook. Turn on your notifications for you get it. And I recommend you go check out Chelsea's class and her Facebook page. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I always love talking about mushing sports.
It was fun. I learned so much. It's totally something new to me.
Yeah.
Bye, you guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.